Donald Trump responds to the gag order issued by Judge Chutkan, which limits his capability to speak about his criminal prosecution as he's in the middle of his political campaign. We've gone through the full order, the full hearing that took place in Judge Chutkan's courtroom. Now let's see what Donald Trump says in response. This came out from his team. Posted October 16th, a statement from Donald Trump, the spokesperson, says, "Today's decision from Judge Chutkan is an absolute abomination and another partisan knife stuck in the heart of our democracy by crooked Joe Biden, who was granted the right to muzzle his political opponent, the leading candidate for the presidency in 2024 and the most popular political leader in America, President Donald J. Trump. President Trump will continue to fight for our Constitution, the American people's right to support him, and to keep the country free of the chains of the weaponized and targeted law enforcement." So Trump's people have obviously seen the final order, and so they're writing statements that are in comportment with the order, but we're noticing the language, crooked Joe Biden's back, talking about fighting for our rights to keep our country free from a weaponized law enforcement, not using the word DOJ there. Now, Trump has ultimately responded to this. He was giving a speech and he had some statements to make, which we'll get to. But here is what MSNBC said in reporting about the gag order after they left the courtroom.
Can announce from the bench that she will impose a partial gag order on former President Donald Trump. Specifically, she will prohibit all parties in the case, including Mr. Trump, from making or reposting any statements publicly targeting the special counsel, his staff, the judge's staff, or court personnel, and also will prohibit statements about potential witnesses and the subject of their testimony. So, for example, Mr. Trump will be able to criticize former Vice President Mike Pence, who, after all, he's running for president against in the Republican primary, but he won't be able to talk about Mr. Pence's potential testimony in this election case, in which, of course, Mr. Pence is a key witness. And this came after a 2-hour hearing, Andrea, that really put on stark display the clash here between the First Amendment and Donald Trump's ability to speak as he's running for president, and a judge's interest in keeping an orderly courtroom, preventing witnesses and participants from being intimidated, and preventing a jury pool from being tainted. And what this judge concluded is that these inflammatory statements that Donald Trump has been repeatedly making, calling the prosecutor deranged, attacking the judge, attacking witnesses, are out of bounds and have the potential to intimidate and even spark violence, threats from the public at large, and that he shouldn't be allowed to make them. Now, what Donald Trump's lawyers say that they will immediately appeal this order, and there's every reason to believe that the Supreme Court will ultimately have to weigh in on this. We're in uncharted territory here with a presidential candidate who has been gagged by a judge.
Yeah, even MSNBC realizes that SCOTUS is probably going to have to take a look at this thing, because we have two major components of American founding concepts coming into a head. We have free speech versus due process of the law crashing into each other. And we heard MSNBC reporting that Trump's lawyers are going to be appealing this. Trump is confirming the same. Here is what he said during a speech about the gag.
Today, a judge put on a gag order. I'll be the only politician in history that runs with a gag order where I'm not allowed to criticize people. Can you imagine this?
Yeah.
Do you believe this? I'm not allowed to criticize people. So we'll see. We'll appeal it and we'll see. But it's so unconstitutional. The good thing is we have so much support. It's incredible. And it just makes it even more so. Look, I'm the only guy that ever got indicted. I got indicted more than Alphonse Capone. Did anyone ever hear of Al Capone? If you looked at him the wrong way, he was seriously tough, right? Scarface. You know, they call him Scarface. Had a little scar in there. I'm sure it was a minor accident, but he was Scarface. But Al Capone, if you looked at him in the wrong way, if he didn't like you, you looked at him a little bit askance, he blew your brains out. He was only indicted one time. I've been indicted 4 times.
4 times.
And in addition, I have these civil trials that are all coming out of the Justice Department. They've weaponized the Justice Department and the FBI. They've weaponized, think of it, the Justice Department. This is like a banana republic, but we're going to be okay. The good news is I'm the only one that's ever been indicted where the numbers went through the roof, because the people understand it. No, it's true. He challenged the election. The election was crooked. They're saying you never challenge an election. You're supposed to believe these people, right? How about the 51 intelligence agents that lied? Turned out they lied. How about the FBI Twitter files? All that stuff. All of the votes, if you look at 2000 Mule, those are tapes of people stuffing ballot boxes. Those aren't people saying. Those are tapes. People don't want to hear it. But no, they put a gag order on me. And I'm not supposed to be talking about things that bad people do. And so we'll be appealing very quickly.
All right, we'll see where it it goes. Now, there were a couple avenues of appeal, and Shipwrecked Crew over on the X had a good post about this that I wanted to share with you. You can give him a follow. He's represented some other January 6 defendants, 22 years as a federal prosecutor, attorney for 25 years, switched over to a defense attorney, represented a bunch of J6 defendants, and of course you can support him. He's got a Give, Send, Go over there as well. And he posted this today. He says, look, this was in response to an update from the judge and the gag order. He says, it's quite possible, though not certain, that the gag order will create a vehicle to get the prosecution to SCOTUS on the shadow docket. So the Supreme Court, in other words, would accept this case because they recognized it was such a problem. Says there could be two avenues, both a direct appeal. So in this criminal case, you just appeal it, but also a civil action, which is something I hadn't thought about, which was seeking an injunction of the order based on his constitutional rights being violated, right? So Trump actually filing a civil lawsuit saying my constitutional rights are being violated would likely be a first of its kind action. It would seek an injunction in the district court, which would likely be denied, and then that could be appealed, right? So in criminal courts, as we've talked about here, it's very difficult to appeal in the middle of a criminal case, okay? When Judge Chutkan, for example, didn't recuse herself, it's hard to appeal that because you'd have to get her to basically certify the appeal and the Court of Appeals to then accept it, and she's not going to do that. Now, after the trial is over, after Trump presumably goes to trial and gets convicted, then he could appeal all of those issues and then reverse that. But the damage is already done at that point. So the idea is we want to go much more quickly. So what Shipwreck Crew is talking about is file a separate action and then appeal that one up. It would be denied and then you'd appeal that. There's a first case law. He says there is case law that says a defendant in a criminal case can have his First Amendment rights to speak being curtailed, but there's never ever been a case involving POTUS also being charged with crime. Says I think the judge might have created an opportunity by saying the quiet part out loud. The judge saying this case would not be subject to the election cycle. Now, we've talked about this many times, okay? And they've said this, that no one is above the law. No one's above the law. I've never bought that because he was literally the president. And I know it sounds kind of like not fair to say like some human in America is like technically above the law. The president is. That's why everybody wants to be president. Literally has like a super user root power that just is different. So when first of all, it goes to the underlying charges that even make up the cases in the first place. But when she says that that person is in her courtroom and it's like every other defendant and that an election cycle is just completely unrelated to her courtroom, like she can just, like an ostrich, just put her head in the sand and just make believe that the outside world is not happening, is lunacy because we have elections and we have a lot of other case law that overlap with this. And she has said this multiple times, like, I don't care about it. I don't care about the election. Well, I care about the election. I know you care about the election. I know we care about being able to vote for political candidates in America and be able to hear from them about issues that we think impact our lives. Why should some judge in Washington, D.C. and Jack Smith, a special counsel, be the people who can act as gatekeepers for our free speech and our involvement in the American political cycles? We never voted for them to do that. And Trump has more support from the people throughout the country in terms of numbers, in terms of people who want to see this done, than Chutkan's little courtroom. So it's a much bigger fish than they want to admit, but they're going to have to deal with the reality at some point. So here, Shipwreck says, this reflects a conscious decision on her part that the election is part of her decision making, and says, yes, this is a hypothetical, but the choices here are going to become very clear, and there might be another avenue of attack on that. So Trump could appeal it, Trump could file another lawsuit, and there's a lot of different things that could happen. We'll see where it goes. Marjorie Taylor Green, representative, was there, and she had a statement. She walked out of the courtroom and gave us an update. And she, of course, represents Georgia. She says today, a Democrat judge issued a gag order, gagging President Trump, destroying the First Amendment. Trump and the judge made her courtroom the ministry of truth. She said the case isn't about the court of public opinion, yet she allows the media to sit in her courtroom, the very people who craft public opinion from the New York Times and elsewhere in their writing stories. She says public opinion matters, and President Trump, even able to defend himself, says the entire operation is run by Joe Biden, his political opponent, and it amounts to nothing more than election interference. This is the weaponized and the weaponization of government. If it can happen to a former president, the question is, who's next? And can I just say, shout out to Marjorie for actually talking about this. I went through a lot of different people's X's today, other representatives and other 2024 candidates, and they're not talking about this because they should be ashamed of themselves. That's why. Because they're happy that Donald Trump can't talk about the election. They don't want him talking about Jack Smith. Every time he talks about Jack Smith and the deranged thug that he is, Trump sends out a new campaign email and makes millions of dollars. So they're thrilled that Trump has a gag order because that just means it's one more tool that he can't use. And so many of them have been quiet. All the people who would like to see Trump shown the door, they all just sat on their hands today. And so shout out to Marjorie and everybody else who's speaking out about this, because it is the First Amendment. And if you can't speak, you basically are not a human, okay? Language is what helps actualize our entire existence. And so when you take away people's speech, you take away their literal humanity. And they're doing that to the president because that's the kind of people they are. They want their side to win and they want Trump to be removed. Here's Marjorie speaking out about it.
What we just witnessed in the courtroom was the judge gave an order gagging President Trump. He's not allowed to talk about the special counsel. He's not allowed to talk about the court. She did say he can talk about Joe Biden and his administration, but yet Joe Biden's administration actually runs the Department of Justice and runs the special counsel. So her orders don't make a lot of sense. The boundaries of disparaging and inflammatory are the standards to be used to judge President Trump's speech. Gagging him and censoring him while he's running for president. He's the top presidential candidate for the Republican Party for 2024. But politics, all of politics, is disparaging, inflammatory. That's the nature of politics and campaigns. So the judge has just made her courtroom now the Ministry of Truth, judging President Trump and what he's allowed to say and can't say. The judge was also talking about how this isn't about the court of public opinion, but yet media is allowed to sit in the courtroom, which creates public opinion, what's written in the headlines and the stories that are written. But yet President Trump can't say anything about the courtroom and defend himself. Another problem is that Jack Smith and the special counsel is the weaponized government against President Trump. This is meant to hurt him politically. This is meant to sway public opinion. And public opinion guides how people vote. So public opinion is important. But Jack Smith didn't bring charges against President Trump until he became a candidate for the presidency. And this entire thing is run by Joe Biden, who is his political opponent. So obviously everyone will see this for exactly what it is. It's the weaponized government, which we should never see in the United States of America. Another big problem is President Trump is running for president to stop communism, the Orwellian practices from the Democrat Party. Stop tyranny coming from government, which the people are terrified, and rightfully so. And freedom of speech is such an important right. And at what point will it stop? Today, court is weaponized in stopping freedom of speech of a former president who has not been found guilty. He's only been charged, he's been indicted, but yet he's running for president. So who will be next? Will the media be next? And then will it be regular people? So the court has made themselves the arbiter of speech. And what we're witnessing is what we should all be completely concerned about. This should not be happening in our country.
But that's what they're doing. They're breaking glass in case of emergency, and they don't really have a lot of concern for what they break in the meantime. And so Trump says, you know what? I'm fighting on. Nobody's going to stop me. I'm willing to go to jail if that's what it takes to save this country. Here he is.
It's Trump, because that's who they're running against. We really want to run against Trump, but they don't. And the way I look at it, we beat him twice. Now we have to beat him a third time. We beat him. We beat the hell out of him the second time.
FBI, CIA.
Think of it. Think of it. We did much better the second time than we did the first. Remember that. And they're getting beaten very badly by me in the polls. They think the only way they can catch me is to stop me from speaking. They want to take away my voice. And a judge gave a gag order today. Did you hear that on speech? Which I believe is totally unconstitutional, what she did. A judge gave a gag order. A judge doesn't like me too much. Her whole life is not liking me. But she gave a gag order. You know what a gag order is? You can't speak badly about your opponent. But this is weaponry all being done because Joe Biden is losing the election and losing very, very badly to all of us in the polls. He's losing badly. But what they don't understand is that I am willing to go to jail if that's what it takes for our country to win and become a democracy again.
He looks and sounds good right there. Sounds good. Right on.
Thank you very much. So true.
Man, even the liberals used to be for free speech. Where's Dennis Kucinich? Where were those liberals who were out there saying, we need free ideas, we need to communicate, let's talk and dialogue? Now they're just censors. They try to shut up their political opponents, censor them, tell them that they're crazy, gaslight them with fake letters from the CIA, have the FBI censor everybody, fake insurrections to set up Trump and the rest of the people who support him. Of course, he is going to continue to fight. And so a couple very good optimistic clips from him, you know. I gotta tell you, it is pretty impressive that no matter what happens, he is constantly just like, whatever, we're just gonna keep moving forward. The Trump train has no brakes, my friends, and we'll be here on it. I hope you join us as we go. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Thank you for sharing it with somebody else out there who you think might enjoy the work that we do here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.